up, man fans? I'm your host, Josh Black, and this is the Week 2 Draftkings Fantasy Locks. Make sure you hit me up on Instagram and Twitter at ManFansFF or on Facebook at ManFansFootball. Don't forget to download the Week 2 DraftKings Fantasy Preview. It's an audio podcast, absolutely free, and available to download on all major platforms, including YouTube. All you got to do is search ManFansFootball. Week 1's in the books, so let's pop the top on Week 2. I'm going to give you one player at every position that I think can hit 3 times cost per point. So without further ado, let's get down to business. Buffalo Bills quarterback Josh Allen. Buffalo's at Miami this week. Allen's priced at $6,700 on DraftKings and projected for 20 fantasy points. Last week, Allen was impressive against the Jets. He went 33 for 46 passing, 312 yards, 2 touchdowns, no INTs. Plus, he added 57 rushing yards on 14 attempts, and that rushing floor puts him in play for me this week. Allen draws a Miami defense that ranks 28th against opposing quarterbacks. Cam Newton got him for 2 rushing touchdowns last week, and I like that trend to continue. Josh Allen isn't typically a passing yardage monster, but I like him for at least 200 yards through the air, 50 on the ground, and a couple scores. He's a pretty safe bet to hit value this week. Next man up, Indianapolis running back Jonathan Taylor. He's at home against Minnesota, priced at $5,700 and projected for 15.3 fantasy points. And thanks to Marlon Mack's Achilles injury, Taylor's poised to make his very first NFL start. The rushing numbers weren't impressive out of the gate, 22 yards on 9 attempts, but last week he showcased as a receiver, catching all 6 of his targets for 67 yards. And this week, Taylor squares off against a Vikings defense that ranks 16th against opposing running backs. They allowed 158 rushing yards in Week 1 to Green Bay. Aaron Jones averaged 4 yards per carry and hit pay dirt. I'm expecting an expanded role for Taylor this week, probably 15 to 20 rushing attempts, and considering how much Phil Rivers likes to check down, 5 or 6 targets in the passing game should be no problem. You can lock him in. Let's keep the ball rolling and talk about Los Angeles Rams wide receiver Cooper Kupp. The Rams are at the Eagles this week, priced at $6,700 on DraftKings and projected for 15.4 fantasy points. Last week was a fantasy dud for Kupp, 4 catches, 40 yards. But his 5 targets was second best on the team, and I think he's in a sneaky nice matchup to bounce back this week. The Eagles have allowed the 9th fewest fantasy points to opposing wide receivers so far, thanks in part to stud cornerback, big play, Darius Slay. But Slay shadowing Robert Woods this week, so I expect Cooper Kupp to eat. And chances are, ownership's going to be crazy low. Kupp's coming off a disappointing performance, and his price jumped $400. The soft matchup and low ownership make Cooper Kupp my favorite GPP play at wide receiver this week. Let's continue. Los Angeles Chargers tight end Hunter Henry. He's at home this week against Kansas City, priced at $5,100 and projected for 12.2 fantasy points. Last week, Henry led all the Chargers pass catchers with 5 catches for 73 yards. And this week, he'll see a Chiefs defense that ranks 25th against opposing tight ends. In Week 1, Houston's tight ends combined for 4 catches on their 4 targets, 58 yards, and a touchdown. So I expect Henry to pick up where they left off. He should be able to make good on that $5,100 price tag with catches and yardage alone. If he finds the end zone, we're talking 4 times cost per point. Let's round out the Week 2 DraftKings fantasy locks with the Buffalo Bills defense. Buffalo's on the road at Miami, priced at $3,900 and projected for 7.1 fantasy points. The Bills defense had a pretty nice performance in Week 1. 1 pick, 1 fumble recovery, and 1 sack. And this week, they get the super juicy matchup against Ryan Fitzpatrick and a lackluster Miami offense. Fitzmagic threw 3 picks last week, so there's going to be some turnover opportunities for Buffalo. Plus, the Dolphins could be without their top wide receiver Devontae Parker. He's got a hamstring injury. The Bills defense is in another prime spot for a solid fantasy performance this week. You can lock them in. And that's a wrap on the Week 2 DraftKings fantasy locks. If you like what you hear, show us some love. Like, share, subscribe. Hit us up on social media. We're at ManFansFF on Instagram and Twitter, and at ManFansFootball on Facebook. Be sure to check out the Week 2 DraftKings Fantasy Preview audio podcast. It's free to download, available on all major platforms. All you got to do is search ManFansFootball. Good luck this week. I hope you guys see some green screens, and I'll catch you on the flip side.